if you haven't worked with us before but have any questions after this webinar, never hesitate to reach out. The majority of our presentation today we're going to hit, I'm really just going to set the stage for at first and really talk about the evolving labor market. Then we're going to talk about some trends that we see in outsourcing and then the role of HR in that career transition process, how we really balance employee care with the needs of the organization. And then Christy's going to talk a little bit about if you are looking for a job in the marketplace as a senior recruiter, what tips and tricks she might have for you in terms of really getting started. And so really setting the stage here and talking about the labor market. We're really standing at a unique crossroads right now in workforce history. So the pace of change right now in the labor market is faster than anything we've ever seen before. We've got artificial intelligence, we've got evolving client and customer expectations, some significant economic pressures and uncertainty, and then we have this shift in employee values, which is really making us rethink everything about how we work. And so the pace of change is just faster than what we've seen. And so for HR professionals, this gives us both a challenge and an opportunity. We're asked to do more with less, and we're asked to manage this change and lead this change. And so today we're going to talk about, again, what's happening in the labor market, what the data is really telling us about future jobs. And I'm predominantly going to lean on one source here in terms of what the market's telling us for future work, and that's the World Economic Forum. So if you haven't looked at it yet, the Future of Jobs report, it's a 2025 edition. It just came out. It captures the perspectives of about 1,000 employers, but it represents 14 million workers across the globe. So 55 different countries and 22 different economic industry clusters. And it's really showing us what we need from 2025 all the way up through 2030 in terms of how the future of work is changing. And so the biggest shift that we'll see is the changes in the global economy and how many jobs we're creating and both simultaneously eliminating at the same time. And so this report shows that we're going to be creating 170 million new jobs by 2030. And that's going to be due to emerging technologies, industry disruptions. But at that same exact time, and this is really for the first time in history, we're actually going to be shedding 92 million different positions that are going to become obsolete based on AI and changes in those sectors as well. And so a lot of these roles, the 92 million, are going to be those that have routine or manual work behind them. And so there's a huge shift right now for HR to really reskill talent and to create career pathways unlike we ever have before. So it's really helping employees to navigate not necessarily a hierarchical structure, but structures throughout the organization. And it's going to create some huge opportunities to do some true strategic talent planning, and HR really has to lead that process with managers. And so most of the jobs we have today are going to look completely different in the next 5-10 years. And so when we really look at companies restructuring and what their strategy was, in the past, it's been predominantly driven by cost-cutting, effective or efficiency and restructuring. And today it's really being driven by new skills, departments and skills that are becoming more obsolete, low performance. And then again, like I said, simultaneous layoffs and new hiring are more the norm at this point. We're really looking for new talent with updated in-demand capability. And when we say right-sizing the workforce, we mean right-sizing with right skilling and retooling the workforce to meet the capabilities that we need to move that business forward. So it's not just necessarily about the numbers, it's about who's ready for what's next and how many people it's going to take to get there. And so the World Economic Forum, Chase, if you'll move to the next one, it looked at the number of strategies that employers are adopting to meet these new workforce demands and giving these evolving skill demands, the scale of workforce upskilling, you see that's 85%. So it's going to be very significant. And this workforce, let's just say you had 100 people within the workforce. This report shows that 59 of those people would need training by 2030. So of those 59 employees would see that 29 of them would be upskilled in their current role. 19 of them could be upskilled and redeployed elsewhere within the organization. And the remainder would likely need to be exited in some way or another into a new opportunity. And so there's going to be a pretty significant disruption in terms of how we look at work and how we look at our jobs today. And so we're really going to look at not just necessarily upskilling, but accelerating automation processes and tasks go directly into upskilling and augmenting the workforce with new technologies. All of that then lends to retooling the workforce that we have. So um, one of the things that we get asked for by employers all the time, we work in both the outsourcing and the comp spaces and the recruiting spaces. We're really struggling to find talent right now in the marketplace for particular jobs. Well, what are our hot jobs right now? And so I think it's helpful to know both if you're a job seeker, these are perfect roles for you to jump into, versus also if you are an employer, these are going to be harder roles for you to find. And the job report shows that those technology related roles are going to continue from 2025 to 2030 to be the fastest growing roles in terms of percentages. And Chase, can we go to 9? Sorry, we're jumping all around here. Okay. So big data specialists being top, your engineers, your AI and machine learning, your software and application developers, all of these being IT delivered roles. There's also in the jobs report, there's some work, and I didn't put it on this slide, about jobs that are more technical focused that are going to be in high demand. So those are going to be like your light truck delivery drivers are going to be pretty big. And then some of your AI manufacturing type roles, your advanced manufacturing, skilled manufacturing, especially in Kentucky, we've got a huge push for those roles right now too. Salaries in these particular areas, we're seeing leaps of 12 to all the way up to 25%, especially for those roles that require both technical and strategic thinking. Those are going to be a 15 to 20% increase year over year in terms of salary right now. I do expect the pace for some of those to slow down. And so in those fastest growing roles, we're seeing organizations doing things like micro-credentialing programs, tuition reimbursement, upscaling academies, even some AI-powered internal mobility platforms or AI-powered training and development programs to really build that skills pathway so that you don't necessarily need to focus on a traditional degree, and instead we need to focus on building competencies. And then we've got some of the fastest declining jobs here. A lot of these are going to be more repetitive tasks or more administrative tasks. So postal service clerks being the first one. But also think of our clerical and our secretarial workers, your cashiers, your ticket takers, your admin assistants, and executive secretaries. In terms of absolute numbers, these are going to be the ones that are exiting the job force pretty quickly that we really need to think about reskilling. So as an HR professional now, taking a look at any of your jobs that have repetitive tasks or any of your administrative roles and thinking, how do we need to reskill these employees to meet the demands of tomorrow? And if we'll move to the next one, in terms of the actual skills when you are going to reskill the workforce, this comes directly from that World Economic Forum report in terms of what skills are in demand. So if you look at that top quadrant there, I think it's interesting. This was backed up by a SHRM report as well. There's both a mix of these hard technical skills as well as these human empathetic soft skills. So analytical thinking really led that list. and it was sought by 72% of employers. But we also see things like resilience and flexibility and adaptability there, as well as things like empathy, systems thinking, curiosity, all gaining traction too. So it's really just a reflection of how complex and how human-centered work is becoming. So even as technology grows more dominant, there's still a need for the human aspect, and there's still a need for empathy, resiliency, that creative thinking, that social influence in the workforce too. So I think that our role as HR leaders is really to challenge and to cultivate these skills internally for all roles within our organization, but especially for those roles um, that we need to reskill when we're thinking about the workforce for tomorrow. So thinking about training, mentoring, job rotation, performance development plans, and then really thinking out of the box in terms of how we reskill and retool talent for tomorrow. So I thought this would be a helpful way to really just set the stage in terms of outplacement. I will say that it's different now in that you may have a significant layoff for part of your workforce, but at the same exact time, you need to ramp up on another side of your business. And this is the first time in quite some time where we're really looking at both laying off and hiring at the same time. And I think that we as an organization and we as HR professionals can help to make sure that we have as minimal of an impact as possible by reskilling a lot of the talent that we have. And so, with that, I'm going to turn it over to Chase to talk a little bit about what outplacement is and how we as HR professionals can support that career transition process.
Yep. Thanks. So
Yep.
what is outplacement? Because we kind of use it as an interchangeable term, I think. Um, but essentially, outplacement encapsulates a bunch of different stuff, but predominantly it's career transition, and it includes professional career coaching and resume services. So there's a couple reasons as to why a professional program like outplacement would be beneficial to separated employees. Number one, it's a much more customized and personalized strategy, because it helps the individual identify their strengths and their values and their goals and where they see themselves. It does help establish some accountability, because they'll have hopefully regular coaching sessions to keep them on track and keep them motivated as they navigate their new job search in some cases. Can also help them with interview prep and negotiation. I mean, if you have a professional coach, they typically have a better sense of what employers are really looking for, and can really help someone that's in the market for a new job tell their story and kind of create their brand as a prospective employee. And I think sometimes the human element gets overlooked in all of this too. A lot of people just need emotional support during a new job search, especially after they have been laid off. They need somebody to kind of help them through the ups and downs that sometimes we face, and the setbacks, because as we all probably aware, um, not everything that we tried during a job search is successful, right? So we have some setbacks sometimes to overcome. So there's some other benefits though to having a professional coach during the career transition process. With the coach, the person does become more clear and focused. With our resume help with someone like Christy, who's amazing at helping kind of refine and create beautiful resumes that are very professional. We can really get more customized, targeted, and more modern looking resumes for impacted employees or job seeking employees. Again, with the interview prep and negotiation prep, I mean, obviously, we're trying to instill confidence in people so that they can stay on top of their game, literally during the process, and they can stay motivated. Also, we typically have job search strategies that are not known to the general public. So we can help people be a bit more proactive and multi-channel or multimodal. Yeah, and how they approach their job search. And then, like I said, the most important is probably the emotional resilience of getting a professional career coach for someone that's in the job market, because it can be isolating if you're doing it on your own. You don't really have anybody to celebrate your wins with, or maybe commiserate with you when you had a failure in the process. Um, so anyway, so that's what outplacement is in general. It encompasses a couple different things, but here's some of the outplacement trends that we're seeing currently. In 2025. So I think to Candra's earlier point, um, while the market has changed and what we're doing as organizations and rehiring or yeah, reducing headcount while also hiring simultaneously or upskilling people or creating new job pathways or job development opportunities for people to be reskilled or rehomed in other departments. Um, Career transition as a practice has also greatly evolved in these last couple of years. And it's more, what we're calling like career navigation, right? So traditionally, outplacement was all about helping someone find, a similar job after their layoff. And usually with just like a resume and a few job boards, but that model isn't really enough anymore. So outplacement has and needs to continue to evolve into something that is more career navigation centric. So it means helping people to look up beyond what they were doing and towards what they could be doing. So outplacement just becomes, a process of reinvention, is what we're saying, not just replacement. And there's a lot of leading voices in the industry like Sherm that are saying that we need to shift it to be about more about mindset as a principle and not just the materials that we're giving people. So we're trying to give people confidence building, some sort of digital or technological literacy that they may not have had before, and then clarity and support about what skills they have that are maybe transferable, so that this transition period is viewed through a more positive lens. Um, so uh, while technology has kind of been the big focus of today, there's still that human centric importance, I guess, and I guess how we kind of focus our career transition services. So the technology side is not enough. In these moments where people's careers are being disrupted after layoffs, people need that human connection. They need someone to listen to. They need someone that can help them guide through what the next steps may be. And that's why, leading career transition or outplacement programs are most effective when they do offer some sort of personalized coaching, that emotional support, and then that career clarity. And candidates who receive an empathetic, more human-centric support as a part of their career transition are 2.5 times more likely to land a job, and certainly faster than those that are navigating the transition alone. Another important part is that there is a huge hidden job market. And still to this day, there's some research out there that said that 80% of jobs are never posted publicly, and they're filled more through referrals and networking. And that means that traditional job boards are only giving candidates access to about 20% of what's really out there. So as HR leaders, we need to really train transitioning employees to focus on visibility, not just visibility to employers, but to their own networks. And that includes things like updating their LinkedIn presence, practicing their elevator pitches, getting comfortable asking for introductions to folks and organizations that they're interested in, and because visibility oftentimes unlocks opportunity for people that are in the market. Another thing to consider is internal mobility. So, the best way to stay staffed or stay at headcount is to not let them go out the door, right? Not let them leave. So internal mobility should be a huge priority for HR leaders, if possible. Internal redeployment is much easier than having people leave and then actually have to rehire either new people or those people again in the future. But while 82% of companies may value redeployment, less than half actually have plans and structured programs in order to do so. So that means that they're letting good people go simply because there's no process to help them move internally. So again, internal mobility, it's good for retention. It's cost effective for sure. It's morale boosting and it's way faster than external hiring. But the key is to make the system visible, right? So when you have a good plan, it has to be visible and has to be well known to everybody at all levels in the organization. So we need to make sure that internal roles are transparent, that we are enabling upskilling, and that we're giving managers the tools to advocate for their teams. And I think another consideration is the scalability of the support of an outplacement program within your organization. And that's just because of what Cander's saying with all the change in the landscape right now. We have companies that we work with that are scaling super quickly. They are sometimes downsizing just as fast as they're scaling. And we don't want people to be in a panic when they realize that something needs to pivot or change. We don't want the scramble. So we want you guys to have a plan, right, as HR leaders. So if you can try to create scalable placement models that maybe, are a combination of everything we've just talked about with the upskilling, the career development ladders to help redeploy people, but also, still supporting those with some sort of coaching, personalized coaching at the end of their employment with you. It's a win-win because it's going to be considered high touch. It's going to feel very personalized. And the companies that get this right, they're not just protecting their brand, they're building goodwill. They're helping people land on their feet with dignity and confidence. Okay, so to just further emphasize how important the role of HR is in this career transition, um, prep, structure, whatever we want to call it, programming to our organizations. I think it goes without saying, but we'll say it again that HR is not just a support function any longer, right? We're seen as change agents, and we're not just managing people anymore. We're all about managing transformation and the actual lived experience of our employees, right? Of our staff. During career transitions, we're often the first people or the first voices that people hear. So we are the tone setter of what this experience will feel like. Do you want it to feel cold and corporate, or do you want it to come across as human and hopeful? At the same time, though, we're still balancing the business realities. We have budgets to adhere to and structures and agility and all those things to consider. But I think sometimes that takes precedence over the actual human experience of change, right? Which is the fear, the uncertainty, and the loss, the sense of loss. So, as HR leaders, this is a moment for us to kind of rise up and be the change agents. We're culture stewards in and of ourselves, and we're responsible for helping the individual and the organization navigate through change, good and bad, maybe change. Um, so here's something that we sometimes overlook. How people leave matters just as much as how they stay or how they arrive to us, right? So the way we treat employees during transition, whether it's through redeployment or some sort of outplacement services, it sends a message to both the current team and your future employees too, that your employees feel respected, they feel supported, and they feel well informed during a career change. And those that feel all of that goodwill, they're three times more likely to recommend you as an employer to their network. So it does not damage your reputation or your brand if you support people in that way. But a positive exit experience really does preserve that brand recognition, and it also increases the chance that you'll have some boomerang hiring opportunities that maybe these people will leave for a time period, but they will come back to you in some other way when again things have evolved or changed again, and maybe they're prepared for a new role in the future, and they can come back to you. So in other words, just treat people well, especially if they're leaving, and it will pay off for years to come. But a few more just considerations as HR leaders and the culture that we sometimes are very much responsible for uh, protecting and keeping. Having outplacement services available and have the resources in place for people that are exiting it. Like we said, it protects the morale and engagement. Um, people that are left in the organization will feel more secure and are less likely to become disengaged or fearful if they know that you guys are offering these things to people and you're helping support them, and it's not cold. It's more of a human, high touch kind of exit process. It often sometimes can reduce survivor's guilt too, because transition services usually show some modicum of compassion, and it helps, the emotional fallout that some people on the team may still feel when they feel conflicted or demoralized about somebody having to leave the organization. It also can help preserve the trust in your leadership. Um, eh, by offering some sort of career transition services, it signals that the company's ethical and responsible, and it helps retain that credibility with the leadership and their decision making. And it can prevent productivity dips. So teams that are more likely to stay focused and motivated when they believe the organization values its people, even in hard times. So, as HR leaders, we're also, it's responsible for building this resiliency in the workforce. And Kendra said, I think in that previous infographic, that resiliency as a skill set was like, what was it, like the number one or number two most sought out skills of employees or employers of their employees currently. But if we want to future-proof our organizations, we have to start by future-proofing our people. So that begins with resilience. It's not just a personal trait or a skill of an individual, it's the whole organization's capability to be resilient. So, resilience isn't just, uh, pushing through the uncomfortable parts of change and things that happen to our organizations, but it means equipping people with the ability to adapt with confidence, to pivot when necessary, and to recover from change faster. So how do we build this? We build it through psychological safety, through coaching, through building up small wins in change so the employees know that they can survive bigger disruptions. And we're not just helping people survive disruption as HR leaders, we're helping them grow through it. So that kind of leads us to our next thing. So all about like strategic outplacement as a competitive advantage. So again, kind of the business case for why you should be investing in outplacement as an employer, so that you maintain your desirability as an employer and the value proposition of wanting to work with you remains strong no matter what you're going through in terms of change or headcount changes or redeployment of employees, etc. So the first recommendation here is to build outplacement into your culture strategy, right? Too often people wait too late to think about outplacement until there's a crisis at hand, right? And then people are scrambling. So the most proactive or smartest organizations are making outplacement a part of their workforce strategy and not some sort of reactive, contingency plan that they enact and break the glass when the emergency occurs. But it's actually budgeted, it's planned, it's aligned with their organizational goals, their retention strategy, and again, their employee branding. So when the outplacement is actually proactive, it becomes a part of the employee's life cycle. And it says as an organization that we, as an organization, will invest in you at the beginning, the middle, and the end of your time with us here. And that typically is a brand that people want to work for, regardless of the outcome. There's also a little bit of ROI, right? So organizations that actually, make outplacement a part of their employee experience, it does affect their bottom line. It is good business. So employees that receive outplacement services are 2 times more likely to land a job in the first 3 months. 3 times more likely to rate their former employer positively. They're more likely to refer future candidates to the organization. Um, and again, so if that's not enough to entice you and your leaders to want to invest in something like outplacement, I think another consideration is, if you want to reduce legal risk, if you want to improve your culture during some sort of change initiative, and you want to keep talent in your pipeline, I think that outplacement is probably an answer to a lot of those questions that we ask ourselves, right, about what's going to happen. Um, So the way that we do that is we build an outplacement ready culture, right? So we normalize career shifts and internal transition. We stop treating exits like failures. We start treating them like they're an evolution or they're a modernization, and that's going to happen to pretty much everybody at some point. Also, to help train our managers to talk about growth, both internally and about upskilling and retraining and development, but also to help them have the ability to talk about exits, so that they're supportive of internal movement and external transitions, and they normalize it without some sort of shame or silence around what's going on. So when you build this outplacement ready culture, you're really building trust. You're building brand credibility, and you hopefully are creating an organization where people want to stay as long as they can. And if they do end up leaving, they're leaving in a position that is often better than when they came to the organization. So we do want to support job seekers through this reinvention, right? And that's where the personalized career coaching and transition services oftentimes come in to play here. Because once people lose a job, oftentimes actually a disruption to their identity as a person. So they do have a lot of emotions around it: anxiety, shame, fear, pressure. But what oftentimes people do is they rely on what they're comfortable with, right? So the easiest or least passive least resistance maybe is to just go after a role that they just left or something similar. But here's the problem with that, and that's what kind of ties back into what Kendra was saying, is that some of these roles don't exist anymore, or they will not exist in the future. So clinging to what they've done isn't a smart career move, right? Because those jobs may become obsolete, and then they're in the same position maybe just a few months or years later if they go for a similar role. So our job, whether it's you're an HR leader or you're someone that's doing career coaching, is to help people move past this familiarity trap, right? So we need to create space for them to explore, reflect, and consider what's next, not just what they've done and what they're comfortable with. Um, sorry. So what do people actually need then if they're job seekers? They need a personalized career intelligence, not just generic job suggestions, right? That means we need to understand what's transferable in their skill set, what new roles might be a strong fit, what industries are growing or shrinking. And they also need confidence, right? They need confidence that comes through coaching, encouragement, things like practice in interviews, practice in negotiation tactics, and really getting clear on what their values are in life too, like what their personal values mean to them, and how that aligns with their career and their career ambition. And then we need to look at like the real tools. So are we building resumes? Are we helping them network or script out networking statements and things that they're going to do in networking situations. And then in the end, we're just trying to give them clarity and confidence and a plan so they don't just land somewhere. Hopefully, they reinvent themselves along the way. So, um, career change is a chapter. It's not the ending, right? And with clarity comes with action, not with overthinking. And people's value is not tied to a job title; it's tied to their potential. So, oh, sorry, it's this darn transcription. When I go to move to the next slide, it goes through all the anyway. Sorry. Um, anyway, I don't know what I was saying. I just got distracted when that slide deck just sped away without me.
You're good. I can pick it up here. So this is really for whether you're supporting a job seeker or whether you are a job seeker yourself right now. Reinventing is absolutely possible. Losing a job doesn't mean that you're losing your value. It doesn't mean that you're starting over from scratch. You're starting from experience. It's not necessarily you falling behind. It's a new beginning of a new chapter. And so we have supported tons of people through transition, and clarity really comes with action. So starting in the beginning, really rethinking and creatively rethinking what you like to do and talking with somebody about what jobs might be out there that you don't even know are available. And then taking some small steps forward, whether that's networking with folks that are in these new to you roles, to understand whether or not you're going to enjoy the day to day within that, whether it's updating your resume, reaching out to somebody within your network, reflecting on your next chapter. The more steps you take along that path, your path just kind of takes shape and you end up finding the right spot. So you don't have to figure it all out at once. You just have to keep moving forward. And so we can turn it over to Christy,
Christy,
who
yeah.
is,
So
yeah,
here,
she's our senior recruiter. She can help you get started on if you're going to take the first step. What does that look like? And a lot of folks, once you really think about what you want in terms of a new move, Christy is the end all be all in resumes. You see hundreds of them a day. So, Christy,
there
Yes,
you
thank
go,
you so
thank
Christy.
much.
you. Professional resume, this is just some tips and tricks and some advice. When you look at your resume, you're thinking like, it's a real well-crafted resume is your first and best opportunity to kind of showcase your skills, experience, and potential to an employer. But I think sometimes people get stumped early on and want to put everything that they did in a job, basically copying and pasting that job description into a resume and thinking that that's going to entice a future employer. So, some of the statistics, just as we start to dive in, we at HRG obviously offer that service where we can help give you more of a professional written resume. Yes, people can put their own resumes together, but you're going to get a higher percentage, of if even a glance, an interview, a job offer, using someone who has a professional service that is in tune with things that are going on in the market now. And how to be able to set you apart, per whether it is you're transitioning from HR and now you're going into accounting, they'll know how to help script that out for you, and find things and words that will kind of trigger, interest. So, and unfortunately, you see that the market has definitely picked up. You've got a lot of people that are in the job market. I can't tell you how many resumes I see. Sometimes, yes, they're relevant to the job that I'm hiring for, and sometimes it is way off base. So you have people just really dumping their resumes out there. And I think that kind of speaks to why a recruiter, after the first 8 to 10 seconds, maybe, you're moving on to the next because you realize there's no relevance there. You see their experience, you kind of glanced over, do they have the boxes? So you're seeing that, like it says, only 2% of applicants make it to the interview stage, and that's about where we are right now. You can switch me over. So, why resumes still matter in 2025? I see a lot of people who are like, oh, well, I've got everything on LinkedIn, or, I've got, uh, kind of different avenues that I can just, post up. Is my resume really that important, or is somebody reading it? But they are not dead. They are evolving. Even with the digital profiles, and networking, most jobs still require that formal resume. They want to see that. And I'm even seeing more employers looking for cover letters because they are looking for that explanation of why they're in the job market, why they're making even a transition. So, don't discredit the cover letter. Tell your story and customize that per job. This is, the resume is often your first impression in the hiring process. So just don't underestimate its power. Employers and AI system screening resumes first before even, getting into social profiles or things of that nature. So it's good to have that where they can have that good glance over, or they can share with their co-manager or whoever that they want to share with, so they have that, tangible, document that they can look at. And in a competitive market, a strong, clear resume will open up doors to interviews. You can click. So just some do's and don'ts to a resume. And I have an example following this slide, so you all be able to take a look at that as well. But this sounds like homework, and it is. Anytime you're on the job market, it definitely is a challenge. You're really trying to put a lot of your effort into that, but tailor your resume for each job. Copying keywords directly from a job description, or doing some research of like, okay, what does this job? What are the main goals for this job? And then putting those words in that resume. Really keep it concise. For people that are early in their career, I would say 1 to 2 pages. And then really for people that are with professional experience, a lot of people want to go to that 2 page max, but I say 2 to 3 pages. And the reason I say the 3 is because don't want to miss something on your resume that would be relevant for that, hiring manager to read. So, so if it's a 3 page resume, don't panic. I think that it just adds more value to what the recruiter's reading and kind of dives in a little bit more to your background. Numbers grab attention. So, if you can put that you've, increased sales, by 30%, or, decreased, increased retention, and, different things of that nature. I think that's if you can add numbers to that, then it shows. And then you can, again, tell that story. Always use a clean professional layout. Really, and especially in today's age, you've got AI and then ATS, applicant tracking systems, that are filtering all these resumes. If you have a really fun, all kinds of different graphics and things added to your resume, it can really kick the resume back out by AI, and you not even get a glance. So really, we're back to those really clean resumes. The fun stuff, I think we had a lot of fun resumes for a good period of time. And unfortunately, again, we're just at a time, and AI will obviously evolve, and maybe graphics won't trip it up as much, but for today, it's one of those things that will trigger it to throw it in the no pile and not even get a glance by the recruiter. Show your accomplishments, not just what you're responsible for. Maintaining your LinkedIn profile, it's always good to have that on there where they can just click it and go and check and make sure that it's correct, because you want to make sure whatever you have in your LinkedIn profile also mirrors what you have in your resume. You will get called out on that. I know that in the past, like objective statements, like I'm seeking my, last job for the rest of my life, and these are things I'm trying to obtain, which is great, but that's not really catchy for recruiters. They want to know what you've done, what you've done in the past, and really give that, professional summary. Kind of really avoid your buzzwords, the team player and go-getter and all that good stuff. I would avoid those. There's so many tools out there that you can, seek better adjectives of describing yourself. So definitely say, to set yourself apart with that. Typos and grammar can definitely be a non-interview killer. It can, think about if you are someone who's applying to maybe something that's more analytical, and that's an attention to detail position. I have seen this a million times, and the hiring manager's like, well, if they weren't even paying attention to the detail on their resume, how are they going to pay attention to the details in the job? So there's so many tools out there to proofread and check and Grammarly and all those good things. So definitely take advantage of that. leave off any kind of irrelevant jobs unless you can have it translate to, what the current job that you're applying for. Unless there's a connection somewhere, you can kind of leave that. You don't have to showcase it. You don't want to leave out your job somewhere, but you don't have to highlight it to a degree. Um, and the days of, putting your photo on a resume and trying to, put all the personal information, again, just leave that off. It's better to leave that off than to overextend too much information. It puts HR obviously in an odd space when, you're talking about your 4 kids and 6 cats and all the things. So we want to try to keep it to, again, the professionalism of the resume. And again, the bottom line is don't lie or exaggerate. It will cause, it can and it often does backfire. So it's just not one of the things that you want to do. And so here's just an example of kind of like, what we have done in the past, obviously, is, picture nice and colorful. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that we're obviously kind of gravitating into new resume space and new, recruiting spaces of, things need to be really crisp and concise. Again, we talked about AI, not really picking up on certain formats, and so that's a big thing. Again, Olivia Wilson here on the left, she may have every qualification and be the perfect person and have everything, but it could hurt her as it kicks out, and then the person on the right may be less experienced, but they had their resume in a certain format, simple font, which I'll talk about. But those are the things, again, that will kind of, hurt a candidate in the long run. So the ATS, or applicant tracking system, scans resumes before a human ever sees them. So use simple fonts like Arial and is it Calibri? I always say this wrong. Or Times New Roman, I think will be good with AI as well. But nothing really decorative or fancy. Keep it, and then size 12 font. And the reason I would say 12 or 11 or 12 is because things are changing so much that recruiters are working from their phones. They're, if they're in a business and they're walking around and they get a resume that comes through, they want to be able to, they want that mobility of opening it up on their phone. So sticking to, the 12 font, the simple, easy to read font, bullet points, those things that they can open up on their phone and then be able to read that and say, okay, yes, I'm going to go ahead and click and schedule an interview with this person. Really avoid graphics, image, tables, and text box. That, again, can confuse software. And I think that's something for down the road after you get an interview that you want to prepare something, if you have to prepare something to show graphics or analytics. Stick with your standard headings. You want your summary, experience, education, and skills. Again, use your bullet points instead of paragraphs for readability. A lot of times, you can save it as a Word doc or a PDF, depending, on what's requested. I would tell a person a PDF is always going to be, I think, the most relevant. And the reason I say that is because what if a recruiter, he or she's doing something 90 to nothing, she pulls up your resume, it's in a Word doc, she hits something, and yes, she can go back and pull up, but what if she doesn't realize she's hit something and it's now shifted or deleted something? Or so it's just always better to send, I think, a PDF, and that way you're avoiding the whole accident of something happening. And keywords matter. Again, mirroring that language of the job posting will be really important for ATS tips as well. Next are just the key sections of your resume. So you're looking at professional summary, 2 to 3 lines, which may be about 3 to 4 sentences, a snapshot of who you are and what you are offering. Key skills kind of tailored to the job. Work experience, you want to list those positions, obviously, most recent experience, and then all the way down. Your education, you can include your degree. I see that relevant coursework is on a lot of people's. If your degree doesn't reflect maybe what that job is looking for. Maybe they want, an HR degree, but maybe you got, a business degree and your coursework was in maybe HR or leadership development or something like that. Then I think it's, then you can always put that relevant coursework. It's really optional if you want to do graduation dates or not. I think sometimes, anymore, it doesn't really date people because people go back to school all the time. So, but that's an option as well. And then you can list your certifications and trainings, and then your contact info, such as LinkedIn, to kind of help them to reach out to you in other platforms as well. And then for tips and tricks for 2025, skill-based resumes are on the rise. Employers want to see what you can do, not just where you've worked and not just what your job description listed out was. Include any kind of portfolio links, digital profiles, and projects that might be relevant. I think that's really important, especially in certain fields. If you've had a project and you're able to put that link into the resume, I think that showcases and also gives you a leg up, per se, to say, okay, here's some of the projects that I've had in the past year. And you are able to click on, or the hiring manager is able to click on that, or the recruiter is able to click on that and see and say, oh, okay, look, this is kind of more of their, analytics of what they've done in the past. So I think all of those are extremely important. Again, we talked about the mobile optimized resumes. Again, recruiters are everywhere working, so it's very important with that as well. With the AI resume screeners on the rise, that formatting and keyword will be more critical than ever. And then for, kind of those final tips, just looking at proofreading, again, multiple times, even a typo can cost you an interview. Focus on value over task, what you have brought to an organization or organizations in the past, and how did your role really impact the business. Keeping your LinkedIn updated and active. Recruiters check it. I get in there all the time to look at, people's LinkedIn, get information. Sometimes if it differs from, sometimes it will be totally different than a resume, and I'm confused on which is the correct. So try to keep it as closely mirrored to your resume, to your LinkedIn. Don't stop learning. So learn new things, showcase new certifications, skills, projects as you grow, and keep your format clean, consistent, and professional, and always keeping it updated.
Thanks, Christy.
Yeah, so with that, we've talked a lot about, from a career transition and an outplacement perspective, how can we support folks as employers, but then also for job seekers on the call, or if we're supporting job seekers, how can we help support them as well? So we've got a couple minutes left. I wanted to go ahead and say that I know a lot of folks are no longer getting our newsletters or our emails for the webinar. So if you are watching this podcast now, or if you need to follow up later on YouTube, I say podcast, it's clearly a webinar, but make sure that you scan our QR code or just go to our website. And on the very bottom of the page, it says get a link to the newsletter. Sign up for a newsletter and you'll definitely receive the emails with all of our future webinars. So note for that. And then also we do have pending SHRM and recertification credit. So if you are on the webinar today, we'll be downloading the list of those names for those folks that hopped on, and we'll be following up with